The similarity between the plot structures of Lord of the Rings and Moana has been noted by other fans, but I find the more intriguing question to be not how Moana is like Lord of the Rings, but why. It seems to me that it wouldn't be the same movie without this sort of subterfuge in the background that makes people potentially misread certain elements of Moana and try to fit them into the structure of Lord of the Rings when it doesn't make sense. Moana, then, may be a test of not only of Moana herself, but of the audience's willingness to accept life when it's offered. So, in mass culture terms, if we let these movies pass uncritically and just say, yeah, we like that movie, some people in power might take it as a sign that people don't want to have control over their lives in terms of youth or fixing diseases or fixing their environment. And the song You're Welcome, although it is presented by a very smug, full of himself character, is still about mortals being thankless when life is offered to them. After all, Maui has done many other things for mortals, and none of them were considered wrong, even though he describes, at least one of them, the obtaining of fire, as a theft. So then if it's okay to steal fire and pull islands out of the sea, make the earth rotate slower, give the wind and the coconut trees, why is it wrong to give people the power to create life itself? Moana is about the refusal of gifts in the end, which is especially ironic because she tells Maui when he gets his fishhook re-offered to him by Te Fiti that it's impolite to refuse the gifts of a goddess, yet she's spent the whole movie, and her people, or at least her grandmother for many years, have spent their time doing just that. The ocean could have given the spiral stone back to Te Fiti immediately, but instead it cast it up on the shore to Moana, and perhaps, if Super Carlin Brothers' analysis is correct, it's done that in the past to other people, which makes it no longer really a theft, it's a gift. And except that wording is hard to use because people are preconditioned to read the phrase, it is a gift, in a certain way, because of Lord of the Rings and Boromir. It's ironic that there is no Boromir in the movie. There's nobody who stands up and says, why don't we just use this thing? And people are preconditioned to think that when they hear that argument, it must be wrong, it must be corrupting, because that's the way the One Ring is in Lord of the Rings. It makes people undead, lengthens their lives, but at a horrible price, giving a sort of guilt by association to the desire to have a longer life. And it possesses the wielder and makes the wielder possessive of the ring, so that the wielder can't give it up. However, the supposed heart of Te Fiti works the opposite way. It doesn't give the power really to control others, except perhaps Te Fiti herself. It's a creative power, and it gives life both to the receiver, potentially, and to the giver. Te Fiti is a volcano in her active state, and it's a completely contrary and misleading, opposite of the truth meaning, to say that a stone is the heart of Te Fiti when replacing it, giving it back to her, causes her to fall asleep and go into a dormant state. That's bad for a volcano. The volcano maintains its life by the heat source and the molten rock underneath and circulating within it. And it has to keep building at a certain rate just to break even, so that it won't sink back beneath the waves. Because if it cools, then the rock beneath it shrinks, and it gets smaller and shorter. And if it doesn't keep building itself, the ocean will erode it, wear it away. And the Pacific is full of these islands that have not been active for a while and have sunk back beneath the level of the ocean. Mount Doom is the opposite although both movies are about returning a small circular item to the volcano of Te Fiti, or Te Ka, in that when the ring is thrown back into it, it erupts, whereas when the spiral stone is returned to Te Ka, the volcano goes back to sleep, which means dormancy, which means without intervention, eventual death. There is no circulatory system imparted to Te Fiti by putting the green spiral stone back in her. There is an opposite relationship also between the Ring of Power of Lord of the Rings and the supposed heart of Te Fiti, in that people can't let go. They want to use and hoard and develop an addictive relationship with the ring. But with the heart, it's the opposite. They can't seem to hang on to it. Moana, when she first finds it, loses it right away, drops it and looks around, can't pick it up again, and her grandmother finds it but doesn't presumably use it, and it's thrown away by Maui and gets thrown back at him by the sea. So people seem to be having to overcome a psychological block to use it, and they're constantly giving it away, which is a shame, because it seems to have, with the power of to create life, the power also to reverse the blight that hits Motunui, or the name of Moana's home island. There's no reason, as is hinted at in one of the early songs, they have everything they need, for Moana to go on the quest. She could use the heart to heal the blight on her island, and presumably make people young enough and healthy enough to travel with it to other islands and heal other islands as well. So it could be a more desirable path that way than what is taken. There could be a shadow, a little bit like Lord of the Rings, cast on all these islands, because the island of Te Ka/Te Fiti is erupting. But there is no blotting out of the sun or casting of volcanic ash over wide areas that would account for the death of the islands in the usual volcanic manner. So there's a certain magic that's making the islands, living things, die, but it's not caused by direct eruptive effects. Moana is like other Disney characters, although the movie has been applauded for its apparent lack of a love interest that has to be pursued by the main female character, in that there still is a love interest, and it's in some ways quite a creepy one. The ocean's behavior when she's a toddler is that of someone who lures. It is a predatory behavior. If we saw a human being acting that way, we would have alarm flags raised, like when a stranger comes and offers a child candy, and we would, as Moana's father does, tell her not to go out there and make sure she doesn't, and warn her against it, although it's harder to do that with the ocean in some ways than with a person, in that the youngster has even more reason to not understand what she's being warned against. Nevertheless, there is certain symbolism and imagery that is not appropriate to a relationship between an older party and a younger party, with the pink conch shells, if you look up what they symbolize, when Moana is lured out into the ocean. And that seems to almost program her, in a way, to always have this obsessive, in some cases, desire to keep going back to the ocean no matter how hard she tries. And though in some ways she feels she's not being a perfect daughter or behaving properly in going back to the ocean. The symbolism, when you add on the heart level to the spiral, can become a little disturbing, because there is a symbol of a heart within a heart that is a spiral. And that is a symbol of people advocating what others currently consider criminal activity, not something you tolerate in a human-to-human relationship. And of course the sea is the classic femme fatale, the lover that lures a lot of people to their doom if they love the sea too much. And that's really the more, I think, disturbing element of this. Are we letting a certain power dynamic that we wouldn't permit in human relationships slide and say that it's okay because it's apparently an animated ocean that's doing it? Once the quest begins, the ocean is very protective in making sure that the green spiral disc stays with Moana, and that seems to protect her all the way through. When she doesn't have the disc, she's in danger sometimes with the ocean, but when she has it, she seems almost invulnerable. But it's taking her on a quest that will remove the ability to heal and regenerate and rejuvenate and give the power of life to her island from the island. And there's never the slightest hesitation when the time comes to decide whether to heal the island on the spot or to return the artifact to the volcano as to what the course of action will be. It's an immediate decision to take it back, because Moana has been pulled in two directions from that first moment when she was a toddler. She was both given the means to give life to her island and given the desire to take the crucial object away from the island at the same time. And much like the viewer perhaps is manipulated in watching the movie, we're being led to say, oh, we never really wanted it anyway, it's more fun to be out on the ocean. Much like the original Star Trek series would often present the crew with an ideal planet scenario where they could become young again or have anything they wanted, but they would have to abandon their ship. Except in this case, that using the power of life make them even more capable of using their ships. If there are some people too old and they could be made young and healthy again or made more mobile, then perhaps more people would be capable of taking their ocean voyages. So, although it appears to be a departure from the conventions of past Disney movies, especially ones like Hercules or Rapunzel, where the hero or heroine is led astray by the desire for a partner that wants to destroy his or her immortality, I think Moana still fits that same mold. And even in her song of longing and her desire for the sea, How Far I'll Go, you can still hear a bit of the sound of, for what a few decades ago would have been what teenagers would have been contemplating in the back seat of a car, how far I'll go. And you still have to be wary then to not share the prime weakness of Disney characters, which is their susceptibility to falling for the wrong people and not get seduced in that way by the movie.